Welcome to Connections and Conversations, an advocacy arena podcast, working to increase civic engagement and strengthen our communities. Welcome to another episode of Connections and Conversations. I am so happy to be here with the family friend, Chris Alexander. And today we're going to talk about something I think is very special to him. And I was excited to learn about it when I met him. So, Chris, say hello to the Advocacy Arena community.
Hello, everybody. Hope everybody's well.
Thank you for being here. And we're going to just kind of dive right into the questions. And it's just kind of a casual conversation we're having, but to reveal a little information that I think is important. First of all, I wanted to ask you what it's like for you being a New York native with Caribbean heritage and a transplant here in Tennessee in the South. What's that like?
Oh, wow. It's been great. It's definitely been a culture shock.
I bet.
Yeah, it has been a culture shock, but I do appreciate being in Nashville. It gives me a little bit more peace. It reflects a lot more of my personality at my age at the moment. And, the hardest part is just finding my convenience that I would typically get from my local neighborhood in New York City. So I've been trying to navigate that to the best of my ability. But all in all, it's been growth. And sometimes you have to put yourself in a uncomfortable or, maybe not so ideal situation to experience that growth. So I'll say it's been great.
That's wonderful. And I imagine some of those things that you've had to adjust to is you probably don't have the availability of the cuisine,
That's a big one.
Exactly. And you're vegan too, right?
I am vegan. I have been vegan since then. Just basically navigated to a vegetarian lifestyle because, sometimes I just go between both. I go between both. Okay. I have been vegan for a significant amount of time.
That's awesome. I just don't have that kind of discipline, but I applaud you and those who do. So moving along, I really wanted to talk to you today. I know that you lost your father at a young age, and I know many people experience this, sadly. And I just kind of wanted to ask you a little bit about what that was like for you, growing up.
I can honestly say it was tough, even at the age where you don't particularly understand what's happening. So my dad, he had me up until the very last moments of his life. And unfortunately, when he transitioned, when he got admitted into the hospital, he didn't want me around. He didn't want me to see him in that state. But I guess when it was pretty apparent that he was in his terminal stages, they made it possible for me at that moment. My dad he was my superhero. Just like any little boy, he was my superhero. He typically had me backstage at a lot of his shows, even though if I was just, asleep for most of it. But nonetheless, always in a position where, if I open my eyes, I can get a view of the stage and I'll be able to see him. So, I was just never really far from him, any recollection that I have. He always carried me around on his shoulders. I don't recall my feet ever really having to touch the ground. In most cases, it's either he was carrying me on the shoulders or on the back of, his bicycle. When we were at home.
I love that. And I love that those are the memories that you carry with him. And I know you mentioned that you would be backstage with him. And so let's get into who your dad was. He was a well-known, famous musician. And what was Fitzroy Alexander? He became known in the music industry as Lord Melody. Is that right?
Melody. Yep.
Tell me a little bit about him and his music career.
Wow, that's a big one. So my dad, I'll try to give you a little bit of what may not necessarily be common knowledge. My dad, he was an orphan little boy, and I think he didn't know his dad, unfortunately. He didn't know who his father was. He got into his music career somewhere around the age of 14. Between 14 and 16, his very first songs that he started to compose, he I'm hearing that he wrote it on toilet paper when he first started. So whatever
Wow.
he had access to at the time, he utilized to the best of his ability. Since then, he was taken under the wing by another well-known entertainer from the island of Trinidad, which is actually my godfather, under his wing, and he was taught, how to play various instruments and just how to own his art. I do think when my dad came into his own, he exceeded a lot of expectations. He performed for the monarchy. He also performed for President Truman on one occasion.
Wow.
Yeah. So, when his life transitioned to the United States, he got in front of some real, important and powerful people.
Yeah, and I know that he played with a lot of well-known folks, and they also sang his music. One of them is Harry Belafonte.
Well,
Can you name a few others that he worked with or that, kind of used his music?
yeah, the song that my dad basically got his international recognition for was the actual song that Harry Belafonte performed his version of. He once performed the record with Nat King Cole on a TV network in the States, and but there are so many other. If I have to throw out another name off the top of my head, Peter Tosh, who was also
Yes.
associated with, Bob Marley and the Wailers. He was
Mhm.
another well-known, and because the sound of, the Caribbean music also made its way to, places like, the European countries, he was well known in those circles as well. So there are certain bands that I can't recall. I'm sorry, off the top of my head, that would be considered, European acts,
Mhm.
that also performed the song that basically brought him his international recognition and brought that recognition back to the island of Trinidad. So we're very proud of that.
I imagine so. And I have been learning about him, and I love that I know some of his prodigy. And I think that it really is important because it is part of American history, our history, Black history, Caribbean history. And it's so important, especially now that we're in a climate where our history is being erased. I think that it's so important that we tell our history, that we preserve our history. So I wanted to ask you a little bit about, the kind of some of the things that you and your family do to try to preserve your father's history.
Oh man. So I am the last of, it's about seven of us, and I am the last of all his children. I think whenever there's an opportunity, I do get approached by other entertainers, or I'll actually run into other entertainers in the Caribbean community, and they would basically speak to my dad as being music royalties and one of the pioneers of the sound that exists today. In the Caribbean, they have been working on things to pretty much bring almost like the Caribbean Hall of Fame, you
Okay.
know. So they're working on a museum, and it was brought to my attention, and it's something that I most definitely have to be present for when the time comes. Unfortunately, due to the untimely passing of my dad, he did have a lot of instruments around the house. Yeah, he had a lot of instruments around the house. And so he was most definitely grooming me for potentially, the life of pursuing music.
Mhm.
And I remember he would have his guitar, I would have a little guitar myself, and 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 he'll try to like show me the ropes and everything. That's really one of unfortunately, my only regrets, that in my transition from the Caribbean to the US, that I wasn't able to hold on to a piece of, something that I should have had, like, one of his musical instruments or something like that.
Absolutely.
Um, Fortunately, my dad he has records out there that I'm still collecting. He still has, and this is probably going to sound a little wild, he still has music out there that I myself have not even heard. Uh, I am still learning a lot from this man. He's immortalized, right?
Yes.
So dealing with his passing, I want to say at an early age, though it has not been easy, but my dad has always been at my fingertips. He's always been within reach, because he was able to do something. He's immortalized.
He left a blueprint. And because he is, and he has so much work and so many people know him, he's kind of still with you and you're able to access those things. And I think that's a beautiful part, because not everyone who loses a parent at a young age is going to have that. So I really think that's special. And I think it's special too because our episode is going to be airing during the anniversary of his passing because he passed away in September of 1988. So
Mm-hmm. It's definitely heartfelt. September is always that type of month for me because I know what it's associated with.
mm-hmm.
Sometimes even unbeknownst to myself, like my demeanor in the month of September is typically a little different, and I find myself do actually, missing him a little bit more, around
Sure.
that time, because again, when he transitioned from the hospital back to the house was literally when we got the phone call. So almost to, as if to say that he was just waiting to see me because I hadn't been able to see him. That was my first and last visit, since when he went into the hospital. And the moment we got back to the house, the phone rang. Didn't even get the opportunity to get settled. That's when it was pretty much announced. And from that point, it just became a media.
I'm sure, and you probably don't remember all of that, but I'm sure there was a lot of media attention around it because, as you said, he's music royalty, kind of like John Lennon,
Yeah.
And I think about that because just recently I saw an interview with his son. I can't remember his name, but he did a book of photography, which is a love of mine. And of course, talked about the influence of his dad on his life and, his love for nature from his mom and those types of things. And I am looking forward to Chris doing some wonderful things with the legacy of Lord Melody running through your veins. I just want to thank you for taking a little time out with me today to have, I think, a relaxing but important conversation because, again, as I said, I think it's important that we know our history, that we share our history, and that we do all that we can to preserve the history, our history, that of our ancestors, because it matters. It really matters in this climate because I feel like we're trying to be erased. Our accomplishments are being diminished and erased. So I am working in my capacity to do whatever I can to make sure that we do preserve our history and tell it. So I wanted to give you an opportunity. It's a small community here in Advocacy Arena, but it matters. And I wanted to give you an opportunity to do that. And as we wrap up, I just wanted to see if there were any last words or thoughts that you had that you wanted to share with us.
Everything that you said, I fully agree with 100%. It's very important that we preserve our history, so it's definitely not forgotten. Yes, I do have certain aspects of my dad running through my veins. I found that I'm pretty, his pen, as a matter of fact, I found that I do have his ability to write. I do love writing quite a bit. And it's very therapeutic. And when I first transitioned to Nashville, I spent about maybe 2 years writing, to see if I would have been any good at it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not bad at it at all, and I do think he's with me a lot of times. So I do think he definitely comes to it. And I want to thank you for the opportunity because this is the very first, opportunity that I've had other than just running into people passing. But I want to thank you for the opportunity. I think you're doing something extremely great. And it does help me and want to pursue things like this moving forward.
Well, thank you so much. And I hope this will just be the first of many conversations that we have. And I am looking forward to seeing you explore your talents and see where they lead. So we'll catch up again, I'm sure.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Connections and Conversations. This is one of many wonderful interviews that we bring to you to help connect you to a larger community of advocates and change makers across the country. You'll get a glimpse into the various ways people are making an impact in their communities. My hope is that it will inspire you to get engaged in some small way as well. We can't all do everything, but at this moment in history, we can all do something. What are you doing? One of the things you can do is to continue to listen, subscribe, and share this Advocacy Arena podcast. You can also join and support the growing grassroots Advocacy Arena community in other ways. Join our weekly live chats hosted on Spoutable every Monday at 12 p.m. Eastern. Subscribe to our Substack to get great articles on important topics and exclusive access to extended interview conversations. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. We've got some exciting programming lined up. And keep listening to our regular podcast episodes wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, subscribe and give us that all-important 5-star review.